On December 10th, Neptune turns direct in Pisces as we enter the final flow forward and reveal our final revelations. We will dissolve what is no longer, wake up to what's real, and begin to birth a new future, my friends. Now, Neptune in Pisces is a transit we've been talking about here for a very, very long time. And like I said in my Saturn video recently, the Saturn going direct video a couple of weeks back, I typically don't focus on outer planets going retrograde or direct because I feel that's a strong point that evolutionary astrologers always focus on. And I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an evolutionary astrologer, even though I do have very powerful views and beliefs on the evolutionary nature of the spirit, the soul, our reason for being here. But the outer planets to me are very much more about the collective shifts of consciousness and the evolution, if you will, of how we as a collective really progress. But in our own life, of course, from doing astrology for so long, you can look at a chart and you could see what an outer planet is all about, what an outer planet represents in your chart, what's the major destiny point for that, what's the fate for that, of course. But at the same time, when we deal with these transits in the sky, when an outer planet goes retrograde, when it goes direct, when it goes retrograde, which happens all the time throughout the course of years and years and years, happening within whatever house topic that a particular outer planet resides in. To me, they're very subtle in how they actually affect our lives. And I feel, yes, if you are sharp enough at understanding the nature of what that could look like, whether, when an outer planet goes direct or retrograde, etc., you might be able to see like how that manifests. And again, maybe this is just me, maybe this is just me. I know a lot of other people out there who are evolutionary astrologers argue that the outer planets are, oh my God, when they go retrograde, when they go direct, we feel them. On the world stage, maybe yes. But for me, I don't necessarily feel it. But I think when we have monumental moments with outer planets, for example, when they're at anaretic degrees, this is a whole different story because the anaretic degree is a threshold degree. It is where the zodiac completes its cycle. The zodiac sign, completes its cycle before we move in birth into a new sign. Okay? So this isn't just any old anaretic degree, though. This is the anaretic degree of the last zodiac sign of the entire zodiacal story. And we are moving into a 0-degree conjunction with Saturn in February, which is a historic conjunction because Saturn and Neptune have not seen each other together at 0 degrees Aries. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, an astrologer, he might be Steve Judd out there. I think a lot of you guys know who Steve is. I'm pretty sure he said this has been thousands of years since Saturn and Neptune have found themselves at 0 degrees. So the moment for Saturn and Neptune right now could not be more important, could not be stronger, involving the dissolving of cycles, the solidifying of commitment and understanding thyself in not only the Pisces whole sign house in your chart, but even recently, maybe the Cancer part of your life with Jupiter there because of the grand water trines we've been having. And of course, a lot of the stuff that's been going on in Scorpio, because that's the other water sign where grand water trines have just been like unreal and super emotional and really bringing a lot of things to the surface. And this Saturn-Neptune moment, I think, has been forcing a lot of us to understand the difference between illusion, fantasy, and what do we need to do to be more sober and structured so we can really start building a new life and understanding ourselves in the most authentic way. And in order to do that, you have to get sober, which has been a word I've been using since the eclipses, actually, because Saturn was so much involved with the Virgo eclipse and the Pisces eclipse. And Saturn was retrograde during those eclipses. And it was just very important for us to realize, like, okay, well, this Pisces part of our life has been going under a massive reconstruction for the last 3 years. And Neptune's been there for 14 years. And these final moments, final years with Saturn and Neptune have been incredible for how are we going to wake up to the reality through the illusions and the fog of whatever the Pisces whole sign house is for you. And please share with me any and all stories about what's going on in your life, or how this Neptune transit, how you're maybe feeling into it. If you are sensitive to outer planet shifts, like, enlighten me. Let me know how you are experiencing this so I can have more education to work with and to learn more about how this stuff is affecting you. Because listen, I'm a professional astrologer. I know what I'm doing. I'm very intuitive. I help people all day long. But there's a lot of stuff I still don't know, because astrology is a constant research project. So I want to know how this stuff is affecting you, because for me, seeing Saturn with Neptune for all these last couple of years, to me, this is like a complete reworking of something very illusory, okay? And really taking the hazy fog of what's going on in the world, even, or in my own life for sure. Maybe I'll share some stuff going on in my own life in the 5th house. I've been talking a lot about my 5th house over the last year, because that's where Pisces is for me. But again, this Saturn-Neptune dance is really the reason we're seeing this blend of how can we structure something from nothing? How can we take the hazy fog and confusion that we all feel, or the fantasies we have created, and how can we make something solid, you know? So focusing on Neptune right now, going direct at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree. It came back into Pisces, right? It didn't even retrograde back to 28. It's literally been hovering retrograde at 29 degrees for like the last couple of months. So this is incredible, because so in my world, I definitely feel I've been feeling this retrograde Neptune more than any other direct or retrograde outer planet transit ever, because this has been activated in so many ways. Like I just said, the grand water trines that were happening all through October, November, and they're still happening right now, actually. Mercury is now direct in Scorpio, and it's finding its way back to the late degrees of Scorpio, which it will just continue to offer more psychic information, communication, clarity, probably. Things becoming more intuitive as far as the way we receive information on a mental level, but also on a psycho-spiritual level. So Mercury, I think, is very much going to provide, during this direct motion, a lot more clarity, a lot more waking up from the dream, so we can start preparing ourselves for this official launch into Aries, which happens January 26th is when Neptune gets into Aries, and then Saturn will follow in February. So Neptune direct represents to me the fog lifting, the tide settles, and the deeper truth beneath the waterline emerges. Not to get so poetic here, but I can't help myself when I write my notes. But so the fog is lifting right now. We just had this crazy full moon in Gemini as well. So again, the mercurial nature of the moment cannot be understated. The emotional, truthful conversations that we are having with ourselves, or have been having with ourselves over the last couple of months, and now having this moment with Neptune going direct, there is even more emphasis, in my opinion, on deeper truths beneath the surface coming up to be dealt with. And Saturn's been direct now for a couple of weeks. And Saturn is that force of reality checks and just the structures that we need in order to get serious with things in our life. And also, Saturn represents karmic reckonings and the truths and the reality of things that maybe we don't want to face, or maybe we're forced to be faced. And I mean, I know I've been in a position lately where, between myself and someone I very much care about deeply, had some massive conversations around very deep reality checks involving something we're involved in. And that to me was huge because it was something that was brewing beneath the surface, and neither one of us knew how to handle it. And we were very much living in some kind of illusory, foggy place, and secretly behind the scenes, not knowing how to come together to address it. But Saturn went direct. Neptune's about to go direct right before the full moon in Gemini. Mercury went direct, and boom, everything just came to the surface for us. And we got to the heart of truth. And it's been liberating. So now, seeing through the fantasy and the illusions of stuff, you know, in my little example there, has been eye-opening. It's been like getting 1,000-pound bag lifted off your shoulders and navigating a new way of existing within that relational dynamic is kind of where the future is going for both of us. And for me, this is like, okay, the deeper truth beneath the surface comes up, no matter how emotional, no matter how hard. And Saturn being there for these last couple of weeks, months, with Neptune, this is like the final cleanup crew moment for us to deal with whatever shit we're dealing with. And so Neptune in Pisces, like psychologically and esoterically, this acts like a dissolving agent on the psyche, okay? Thinning defenses so we can perceive subtle truths, but also exposing us to illusions, idealization, and escapism. So in my little example, there was a lot of that, you know? I think illusions, idealizations, and even escapism is a good way to even put what I was experiencing. Because, and I think that even goes to a lot of different things in my life. And I'm sure if you even think about your life, what are you feeding into illusion and fantasy? What have you been idealizing? And what have you been maybe escaping into to ignore maybe things that you know in your heart are true? So these last days with Neptune and Pisces, with Saturn here, right? I mean, I have to keep talking about Saturn, guys, because I mean, this is going to be the epic like tag team until we literally get till April, May, June, July, where Saturn separates away from Neptune and Aries. And then again, Saturn will then have an opportunity to breathe and to do things on its own without it being so tied up in this foggy, creative, spiritual place, which is not bad for all of us. You know, I mean, I feel the Saturn Neptune stuff can be very creative for people and can be very enlightening. And a lot of us, even myself, are having even a very creative boom right now. And I think it's going to get clearer and clearer when Neptune goes direct. You know, as of the moment I'm recording this video, it's not direct. But I think as the winter unfolds, these two planets being direct still together and going into Aries direct, while they're still conjunct, I mean, there could still be a massive blend of creative energy there, you know? But I think in this moment, as we reflect right now, we have to understand that this is more about a reality check of surrendering and dissolving things that we have been involved in that no longer serve us or that are no longer rooted in reality. And that's really this powerful moment of Saturn being at these late degrees with Neptune. Okay. So Neptune invites us right now to surrender to old identities, to release inherited fantasies, and a deepening into symbolic perception. It teaches that not all clarity comes from logic. Sometimes it erupts through myth, synchronicity, and the quiet voice beneath the noise. So this is really powerful right now. So I'm focusing more on this exact moment it's going direct, because the full moon in Gemini was chaos. Neptune, Saturn being direct now, influencing Mercury, and the grand water triads that are still so activated. This is emotional upheaval. This is emotional chaos a little bit, but also the psychic nature of Mercury is incredible. So again, I have it right here, Mercury on December 6th, 7th, right? So this is days before Neptune goes direct. This is emotional intel, psychic downloads, deep memory surfacing, okay? Remembering things that are true coming to the surface. And this is a return to clarity, okay, after the noisy full moon. So this Neptune direct is so big for understanding the nature between control and surrender. And what does that mean for you? When I say there's a tension possibly right now between control and surrender, because Saturn wants definition, boundaries, and accountability, while Neptune wants permeability, imagination, and spiritual truth. And we have to get clear with both of those in that Pisces whole sign house. And at the moment, the Scorpio part of your life, the Cancer whole sign house, because of these water triads that are still super activated. But the Mercury aspect of this, right? This is the conversations we need to have with ourselves and with other people, or how we are dialoguing, period, full stop. So to me, this Neptune station, additionally, is a long era of confusion, grief, or emotional disorientation. It begins to unwind. Now, dreams sharpen maybe for some of us, so maybe our dream states could get a little heightened for us to get these downloads, to get these insights. I mean, I've had a few dreams lately that were very powerful, that couldn't be ignored. And there could also be hidden spiritual or psychological processes reaching completion, which makes sense to everything I just said. So just things happening to us within our everyday life, and deeper emotional feelings becoming more and more conscious as very truthful realities. This reaches a boiling point where we know endings are here, and we have to do something about it. And let me tell you something. I've been in positions where endings, I know in my heart, endings are supposed to end, or things are supposed to come to an end, and I never did, or you just fight it. That's where Saturn in a couple of months from now and next year will probably bring you to your knees and force you into situations that you're going to have to make hard decisions on. So the one thing we have to understand about karma and the unfoldment of karma and things like astrology like this is, or when you meet an astrologer who's trying to help you or delineate in the way that I try to, I'm offering an opportunity for you to meditate into what I'm saying, for you to investigate some of the things I see, and to kind of fix those problems now. Just like an addict, when they know they need to get sober and they just fight it, they're only going to dig a deeper hole. And it's possible to get the help now, So right now we have to really investigate everything we need to release, let go of, dissolve. And is there anything we could do to even get to work early? Is there anything we could do to work with Saturn to unfold our future in that next part of our life, in that next stage, that next chapter? So it's really the final purge of illusions. This really is the final purge of illusions, guys. Neptune direct doesn't expose truth with shock or disruption. So take note of this. It reveals gently, like low tide exposing what was always there. What arises now has quietly been forming during the retrograde. So the retrograde happened in October. Okay. So if I look back to my timeline of things that I was experiencing, and I'm not going to get specific about my story, my friends, it's too specific and a little too detailed, but the month of October was a big month for this reflecting, this navigating the fog of things that were very front and center in my reality, which have been dealt with right before this Gemini full moon. So again, understanding what was being quietly formed during the retrograde, these contemplations on a deeper level, and subtle patterns of even self-deception, right? So again, lying to ourselves about something that we already know could be real, trying to create another narrative so we don't have to face the truth. We're all guilty of this. When was the last time you deceived yourself and didn't want to admit to something and you just fought it without necessarily addressing it within a certain proper amount of time? So where is spiritual bypassing substituted for healing? Like that's also something else. Like where have you spiritually bypassed instead of gotten to a deeper place where you can heal? And I think that's really important to note. I feel like that one doesn't necessarily tie into my experience, but the first two do, for sure. I think when you're involved in something that no longer is in chemistry with you, and you decide not to face that and talk about that or address that, whether this is a personal relationship or a business relationship or whatever, with your mom or your parents or your siblings, you are deceiving yourself, and you are then possibly going to go down a road where you will spin new narratives to keep something alive that shouldn't be, So that's really, really important to note. Now, I'm going to see if there's anything else I should talk about here, my friends. Of course, I think there's a moment right now for heightened intuition, emotional fatigue, and psychic saturation. That's also something I think, as we're in these late degrees, this last degree, the amount of psychic and emotional and empathic understanding and sensitivity to emotions is huge, and we have to learn to embrace that. So I think it's really important for us to get real about that. It really, really is important to get real about that. But before I continue, guys, I do have a few more things I would like to say. I would just like to say, if you're enjoying this video thus far and you would like to support my work in the channel here, it would be great if you could consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video. All that stuff really helps the channel's growth here, and the support I gain on this channel is unbelievable. I cannot believe that I've crossed 30,000 subscribers. About a year ago, I only had 2,000 subscribers here, if you can believe that. So the support that I've been getting is absolutely incredible, and I'm so glad that I can share with you what matters most to me in life, and that is astrology, but also how I can make that digestible for you for it to hopefully impact you in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, and if you guys would like to connect with me for readings, I think I might have a few slots left in December, one-on-one Zoom calls. I would love to dive into anything you would like to talk about while we use your astrology charts and the transits in the sky as a guide. And also, if you would like to learn about my upcoming Decans and Minor Arcana mini course, you can click some links down below and learn more about that. That will launch January 4th. It's a pre-recorded mini course. And then I will be hosting 4 live streams once a week for 4 weeks after the launch, so we can all get together and talk about the course and really whatever you want. So yeah, so that's all for this, my friends, my little plug here. And let me just wrap up this video with a few extra comments on what I think this transit is really all about. Okay, guys, I just want to close off with a few reflections for you guys to meditate with. So I feel as we face this final gate into Aries, which we'll be dealing with a whole new Neptune-Saturn dynamic when we talk about the first decan, of course, of Aries, which is a Mars-ruled decan. And again, I talked about the decans a lot with the late degrees of Pisces and the early degrees of Aries. I'm not going to talk about the decans today, actually, but I did I did a lot in the Saturn video I just put out there. But again, we're going to be dealing with a whole new Saturn Neptune experience in Aries, a whole new theme of life that is completely different. So again, Aries is a whole other whole sign house for you, but Pisces into Aries, the energies are just so drastic on how we're going to feel them. And we already felt them, we already felt them over the summer. And this blend still of the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, we're not necessarily so clear and sober. We're just starting to understand what sobriety really is. And again, I keep using that word because when you've been sedated, you know that when you become sober, things become so clear. And when you're wasted, you can still understand life. Like you can still, for the most part, I mean, depending on what drugs you're on, right? Or how drunk you are, but you can still understand what's going on for the most part. You can still function sometimes. You get what I mean? I think you understand what I'm saying. But when you're sober, you are clear. You are, facing all of the emotions and feelings and thoughts head on. So it can be very overwhelming to be sober in the beginning. But again, we need to be if we want to evolve to the highest timelines we can possibly exist within. And this moment of going direct, Saturn being direct, activating these trines, these water trines, like I've been saying this whole video, and then preparing to go into Aries, this is a massive blast of initiation into a birthing of a new entire way of living. And whatever we're learning in these late moments of Pisces are huge for our emotional maturity, for dissolving stuff in our life that no longer is needed. And again, when I say dissolving illusions, that's kind of what I'm saying. Dissolving illusions and unveiling unconscious things, preparing the psyche for more active embodied spirituality and spiritual function, and just, again, what our desires are and the dreams we wish to elevate into being. This is part of the Neptune era in Saturn, okay? Initiating things we believe in and really taking charge with that. And then Saturn being there for the next 3 years, very much a world builder, structuring all of this. So where have you been confusing surrender with avoidance? That is one question I want to ask you for a reflection on these last moments with Saturn and Neptune together. Okay? What illusion are you secretly afraid to release? Because some of us are afraid to let go. Okay? So that's huge. Some of us are afraid to let go, afraid to let go of what they've been so used to. And how is their identity shaped in that? Did your identity get lost in the sauce somewhere? And a narrative that has been spinning for a while now that has provided you even security, maybe relationship security, maybe creative security. Where do you need to expand yourself now and do something new? Are you, what truth do you now know, but you're unprepared to live? That's something I want to ask you. What truth do you know, but feel unprepared to live? Because the time is now, my friends, to take that leap. Because we're taking that leap into Aries, whether we like it or not. What dream or ideal have you outgrown? This is important. What dream once comforted you, but now constrains you? What aspiration no longer fits your current self? How do you mourn a dream without collapsing into failure narratives? This is huge, guys. Huge. This is absolutely huge. And if you're doing the conscious work and you are being honest with yourself, you will know that Saturn is there to offer you a new way to be committed and disciplined so you can remove yourself from the energies of narratives that will keep you stuck in a place where it no longer serves where you're growing. Now this doesn't mean you throw things away, by the way. Like when I say dissolving, this doesn't mean like, oh, we're all cutting things out, we're cutting people out, we're stopping careers. This just means our relationship to those things. Again, there's been illusions and fantasies created, and there's been things that have been dancing within the fog, and it's almost like there's a maturity that's kicking online for all of us. And I know if we look hard enough, we will see it. Spiritual bypassing. This could also be huge right now for a lot of people. So doing shadow work around spiritual bypassing in the Pisces whole sign house, maybe the Scorpio, Cancer, right? Because of the grand water trines activating all of this right now. I mean, we can't like ignore the grand water trine moment we had from October until now, because it's still happening until Mercury gets out of Scorpio. It is still part of this moment that you're watching this video. It is happening right now as we speak, intensely. And if for the next couple of days after this direct moment, for the next week, maybe almost, less than a week, Mercury is just turning up the volume for these conversations and for this internal monologue. And this can be a beautiful moment to getting to the heart of anything you have been spiritually bypassing. So that's really, really important to note. Because we can't do that shit anymore. In the age of Saturn and Neptune and Aries, there's no more spiritual bypassing. You're either getting real and authentic with things and yourself, or you will drown. You will not make it, And I'm saying this with love because we're entering an age of fire and air where we need to ride the wave of action and movement and creation, not drown in the nature of fog and illusion and fantasy and spiritual bypassing where we're going to ignore shit, So that's over, guys. That's over. What is rising from your unconscious that you keep pushing back down? So that fits right into what are you ignoring? Like, what are you not acknowledging? Write down what you are afraid of. If you acknowledge something you know deep in your heart is truth, write down what's the messages that are that are trying to be delivered to you, and you're not picking up the phone call. Where are you porous in the Pisces whole sign house right now? Are you still living in a realm where there's no boundaries? Where do you need them? Where do you need boundaries? Where are you absorbing other people's feelings? And how can Saturn help you get sober on saying, hey, what I know in my heart I need in my life matters. I think I'm going to end this here, my friends. I think I talked enough today. I do hope that this video was helpful. Like I said in the beginning, I normally don't focus on outer planets going direct or retrograde. But I do think in this moment it is necessary to talk about. And I know you guys are totally cool with anything I talk about here, which is awesome. But this is a big one. This is a big one. And I'm not sure if I'll talk about it again, but maybe like literally as the days approach before Saturn enters Aries. But for the meantime, I hope the general theme of this conversation was helpful. And I do hope that you can take this and really meditate deeply. So until next time.